Hi there, and a very warm welcome to the very first episode of Series 1. Is that right? Alfredo, did I get it wrong?
It's the first episode, so yeah, it would be series one. Season one.
Season 1, sorry. Alfredo made me do this. This is IAA Podcast, and we've just named it. It's basically going to reflect the style of it, and the style of it is keeping it real. We're going to keep it painfully real. We're not going to hold back any punches. We're not going to talk about the beautiful, glamorous lifestyle of real estate agents. We're going to talk about the reality of the market. I think it's time we were all able to express things that we love and things that we don't love and things that we quite frankly hate, right? So who better to join me on the very first one than Alfredo Bloy Dawson, I think, needs no introduction in the real estate world in Spain,
Torremolinos.
in Torremolinos. Yes, of course. You got that award, no?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
remember the awards?
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about the awards at some point as well, I think. And of course, Percy, Roland as well. Very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Between us, I think we've probably looked and been to every point of view, every angle of the real estate market. Is that fair to say, Alfredo?
I think so, especially because I'm not an agent. So
But you have the overview,
helicopter view, yeah.
helicopter view of everything that's happening. And Percy, you've been, what's it been, 18 years for you in real estate?
No,
Started when he was
making me
4.
older than I am. Yeah. No,
You were
but
10,
40.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Oh,
And you've done all the starting from just trying to see if you can get into real estate and then getting into real estate, working for yourself, working for an agency. So you've got all of those. I've obviously covered as LM Group Real Estate Agency before that, also learning to see what the market what's the best way for me to get into it. And today, I think let's start from the beginning. In this first episode, let's address the issue that's super fascinating for so many people just arriving brand new on the scene. And I told you both very briefly the story that fell into my lap yesterday of the meeting, which is, I think, very reflective of what's happening in the market. I would say, if I had to say, maybe at the very, very, very least in Andalusia, maybe 50 every day arrive that look around and like, oh, there is a lot of money that could be made here in real estate. And there is a lot of people that maybe don't seem to know much more than I do, and they're still at it. So how do you get, like, what are my options? How do I get into it, right? So today, let's get real, keep it real, and see together what are the different forms, advantages and disadvantages, the reality of getting into Marbellas, in this case, Costa del Sol, real estate. Phew! Over to you. Alfredo, I bet you have a few things you've been keeping back.
Well, yeah, you want me to start? I mean, there's no licensing requirement, so anybody from Paco the gardener to somebody in Stockholm, anybody could become an agent with a subscription to an MLS and a €500 website. They're off. They can be advising people on the biggest purchases of their lives without a Scooby-Doo idea of what they're doing, what they're selling, who they're selling it to, and whether it even begins to match what the buyer wants. And those are the ones that there's absolutely zero stopping them. So that's the ground we're in. Between that person and the super experienced, super reputable, super trustworthy, there is a sea and ocean. And I think the other thing I'll put at this stage into the conversation is that if you want to get into real estate, generally speaking, I'm not tapping. Tap it. Look, you want to get in. And I think the thing to
Unedited completely.
completely. If you want to get into real estate, it's not your fault that you don't know how to do it. Nobody started knowing, and so everybody starts somewhere. It's not people's fault that there isn't any regulations, and it isn't people's fault that there's limited training available. So before we start shooting them all, we kind of have to think, okay, what are the solutions to this, and what are the options
Mhm.
to agents coming into the market, and perhaps what would be, and this will be your view from having experienced it, both of you from different perspectives, is what would be the safest and most robust course of action? How should they go about it as
Mhm.
first step? Should they join a company? Should they go solo?
If you had to finger in the wind, how many of these cowboyish newcomers there are right now, including the taxi driver that picks you up from the airport and makes conversation and saying, so you're here on holidays? Are you here first time? Are you thinking maybe buying here? Oh, you are. Well, actually, so from all those people offering, acting as a broker, as a real estate agent, if you had to put your finger on it, on Costa del Sol, roughly to the last 1,000, how many do you think there are?
I'd say
Or to the last 10,000?
I'd say Costa del Sol, Malaga to Sotorande kind of stretch. If I had to guess, I'd say somewhere in the region of 15,000 to 20,000 individuals,
20.
not agencies, but individuals.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you agree?
Probably. Could well be. I wonder how big a problem it is in real terms, in terms of, and where the problem actually lies. So what I've noticed recently is, especially on LinkedIn, there's been a lot of talk about this issue, right? And I see that it comes from other agents, and it comes primarily from established agents, and I can understand that they don't like competition. So there's also the element of that. And sometimes I feel like, are we actually talking up a problem or making it bigger than it actually is? The truth of the matter is that we have one of the strongest real estate markets in Europe at the moment.
What do you define as strongest? Strongest in what?
In terms of volume, in terms of demand, and in terms of sales happening. And Alfredo keeps reminding us and showing us the graphs, and we wouldn't know otherwise, but it keeps pointing up. Okay, sometimes there's a dip, but overall in the last, even before COVID, we all talk about COVID, that was the big accelerator, but even before that, the market was already getting much stronger. In fact, it was catching up, because for a long time the market here was lagging behind. And it's interesting to think about why it was lagging behind for many years. If we talk about the time when I started was around 2011, 12, and the market was completely dead, right? And it was dead until 15, 16, except for the occasional high-value transaction going on. And it was because agencies here, to a large degree, were lagging behind in terms of marketing, in terms of reaching a new generation of buyers. Developers were lagging behind because they were not producing the kind of product that buyers now wanted. So we had a lot of catching up to do. And I must say, a lot of the innovation and the disruption that brought us here now actually came from people who came from outside with a totally fresh outlook and studied the market, but they did it correctly. They were not the taxi drivers, but they were the people who really studied the market.
Maybe they were.
Maybe they were.
New profession.
But looked at the market and said, okay, what's going wrong here? And what can we do differently to fire up this market? And they did. And now a lot of even, the older established ones
That's a very good point.
are beneficiaries of that,
Yes.
right? And they caught up. And I've lived it firsthand, with a company that shall remain nameless. But, when 2015, 16, we said, maybe we should do some Facebook marketing. Facebook, at that point, even my mother already had Facebook. So it wasn't the brand new, thing people were already moving on. Facebook is for kids. Our clients are serious businessmen. They don't have time for social media. And then a year later, we need to be on social media. And so it goes on. So,
They're very, very good points, Percy. So yourself, you have around about 15 years, different roles in the market. At the moment, you are working for yourself.
Yeah.
All properly professional. You're creating.
I hope so.
You are self-employed.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And you are developing and building your own brand, right? So
Yes.
a one-man show, but a very good
Pretty much.
professional show, correct?
Well, I hope so. And it is to some extent a one-man. It can never be fully one-man show because there comes a point, you can't do it all yourself. If you're doing all yourself, then ultimately you're not able to do anything correctly because it quickly gets out of hand. Nowadays, if you are an
But
agent,
you win Financial Times, Percy. That's
true.
Can I do Financial
Hit it.
Times? Yes. Okay.
It was a wonderful thing. But that I think if you this is a challenge nowadays, and this brings us a little bit to the problem that you described. Nowadays, being an agent means so many things. Back in the day, it was showing people properties, to get them in the car and driving them around. And in our case here, because most people come from abroad, showing them the area, teaching them, the difference between Elviria and Estepona. And now you need to be so many things. You need to be a content creator. You need to be an influencer to some degree. Your face needs to be seen everywhere. And that has, I think,
And all the new technologies and tools and everything else to stay ahead and to
Yeah.
be able to quickly, do the selections and do the nice packages,
Exactly.
and everything.
and not everybody has an Alfredo who tells them or shows them how
Well,
to do
you
it.
kind of have, you're part of IAA. You're
Yes.
an IAA member, IAA, the Independent Associate Agents platform. And so there, as the professional, very experienced expert Percy, with your own brand, you have access to a lot of the tools,
Yeah.
right? And they help you to have the time and the energy to keep building your
Absolutely.
brand, right? And
Absolutely.
keeping it professional.
I think the question of, let's say, the taxi driver who tries to sell you something.
Poor taxi driver. Let's
Poor
go to
taxi
Paco the
drivers.
gardener, right?
Paco.
Paco, sorry.
They've always been there. They've been there in the 80s. They've been there in the 90s.
I think
they've
they'll
been there.
be there. They'll continue being there.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, that is a side effect of being a resort kind of market. And I'm sure you have it in Dubai, and I'm sure you have it in Miami. I'm sure you have it pretty much everywhere. People, where there is this kind of bubble and people are coming, there will be people who try to get in there. And 99% of the
Which is,
time
you
they
see,
fail.
It's not a bad thing, right? To keep us on our toes, to keep bringing fresh ideas, right?
That, whether it's a good or a bad thing, I think it's a fact of life.
It's a fact of. I think
It's
that's
a fact of life. I don't think it is actually, certainly, like, say, if you're an established estate agent, be it a big company, a small company, a freelancer, that's not your competition. You don't need to worry too much about it. Now, as a client, if you're taking real estate advice from your Uber driver, then maybe you should also think yourself, how serious are you about business you do, right? I think there's also a bit of a responsibility on the client to be responsible. And you can regulate and legislate as much as you want. I mean, there are a lot of illegal taxi drivers also. If we stick with that example, the people who approach you at the airport and say, hey, come with me, and then in the taxi, and it's not allowed, but they still do it. So I don't think that's one thing. And it was there. It was always there. It will always be a part of this ecosystem we're in.
That's a good comparison as well. That's a good parallel, right? So that in every single industry, including marketing, including gardening, including taxing and transfers, you have, it's not just real estate, right? In every market, you have those kind of underground roles.
Yeah, I think we need to separate cowboys from newbies.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I love that point.
Cowboys are cowboys at all levels.
Absolutely,
With experience or without
absolutely.
experience. They're the one really that the good established agents are actually complaining about. I remember going to an LPA thing across the road at the Palacio Congresos a couple of years ago. And the theme of the speeches that they were doing to me was all that they were just bitching about too many agents. So my view at the time was kind of, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? Right? The next day, I had a lunch with a very established agency, and one of the directors that is a member of the LPA committee pulled me aside and said, look, I agree with a lot of things you say, but we're not complaining about the newbies. We're not even complaining about Paco the gardener. We're complaining about the unscrupulous cowboys that will do deals with Paco the gardener that is against the integrity of the industry. That's the problem we have. So you're not quite right there, Alfredo. Fair enough.
I love where we're going with this. I love the points. I love the points that on one hand there are newbies, let's call them newbies, that are coming and bringing some great, maybe international ideas, maybe cultural, maybe from their other professions. IT, prop tech has changed the landscape. I know you love I think you love
evolving
that one,
landscape.
the evolving landscape. They have evolved. They have helped us to evolve the landscape of the business that we do. And you're completely right. I've seen that as well. People come from out of nowhere, and you first are like, what will you know? And then they come up with an idea, and like, we haven't thought of that before. Thanks for that.
Drumelia. I know they've been around for a long time, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I could weekly I had an agent saying that'll never work. Never no one's ever going to buy from some young lad shouting his head off outside a big villa. That's not how the high end works.
Look at them go now.
Yeah, and I said, be careful because some will, and I think history has proven the case that there's a new market, and the difficulty for the established agencies is that they never know what of the new trends they need to get on board with,
And it's scary.
and which
It's
ones it's just
scary.
not a good fit for their DNA.
Yeah.
And that's very complicated for everybody involved. So
Absolutely.
you kind of always have to keep your eye on the disruptors, and some fall by the side, and some everybody ends up adopting as the new way of doing business.
Absolutely. They keep us on our toes, and your point is so important, is to separate also the newbies
From the cowboys.
from the, hey, listen, I've got a couple of spare hours. I'm going to try and, have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just going to pretend that I do. So separating those. Yeah.
There's a lot of money involved, and when there's a lot of money involved, there's unscrupulous people that are attracted to it. Just call it what it is. Crooks are crooks.
And here we're calling it what it is. We're keeping it real.
No, it is. So that's the issue, is the crooks.
Yes.
Now, so we can't fix the crooks, other than that's maybe with some degree of regulation may help. But really what we can fix is give some advice and some guidance to the newbies and say, right, you're going to start off here. These are your options. And this is
realistically, right?
And this is what we would suggest. You'd probably make it the least painful for you. I am very optimistic. So I know that as soon as anybody does any kind of like course like Franco de la Fuente did, and with the course that we did, people want that. People want to learn.
Absolutely.
So
but anything new is scary. Like, I am not saying for them, I am one of them for whom it's scary to see sometimes, this new kid, they're not kids, but new kid on the block, and all of a sudden, what, in your face, and they're like, what? Where did that come from? Now we also have to learn to do this and oh.
But I can assure you that there is probably half of the top 10 agencies, established agencies here, spend more time looking at other people's websites than their own, because they're absolutely obsessed with what everybody else is doing, because they know they're not doing it and they don't know what they should be doing. So
FOMO, our famous beloved FOMO.
100%, and that's why I have a job, is to say, no, maybe you shouldn't be.
The few people that are as old-fashioned as I am, will you just explain FOMO, please, Alfredo?
Fear of missing out.
Yes. I very famously learned this from my 13-year-old daughter. Now I go and use it whenever I can. I feel so modern and trendy.
So let's look at
I thought it was a millennial thing.
I don't know. I've lost track of the letters. I think I'm Generation X. But so you can, as a new agent, you can go out there alone. You can get a subscription to Resales Online or somewhere and get a little website. Or not even have a website.
You
right?
can't now anymore resell online.
Oh, okay.
Yes, let's congratulate them, because someone was saying that they tried to. It was actually anyway, that they have become much more professional and strict. Not that they weren't professional, but in terms of their request, a lot of the documents you have to give, you have to show them, send them the certificate of incorporation into Social Security under real estate autonomo. You have to be autonomous, so it's not just here's 2 grand and let's go.
Good.
And I hear other MLS are looking to do the same thing, and I gather it's got something to do with the tax office now trying to get Idealista and MLS to help them identify some things. I think that's what, again, LinkedIn has told me, and a couple of internet articles. Yeah. They're even looking at our social media to see, so that holiday, that trip to Madrid that you wrote off as tax expenses. Let's see in your Instagram if you were, at the fashion show.
The biggest thing with tax related, the biggest thing affecting agents coming in the short term, at least, is your decision of should I be employed or should I be self-employed is bullshit, because most agents employed are self-employed. So it's very, very few agencies are actually going to end up putting on the books. Let's just call it as it is. This is real. Yeah. So you're going to be self-employed. The question is, are you going to be self-employed under the umbrella of a company that'll support you and help you get started and teach you, or are you going to do it self-employed on your own and figure it out by looking at YouTube videos? That's the option. Not that many company will put you. Spanish taxes are a nightmare for employment. And not that many companies proportionately are going to be hiring everybody that walks through the door with no experience. So the ones that do put you on the payroll are going to put someone on the payroll with experience.
And laying off people costs a hell of a
And
lot of money.
laying off people is a nightmare. So
I'd like to know how many. This is I would say is a more interesting number actually. The percentage of agents who are employed and actually get a salary and then commission on top. It's probably
I'd love to know,
it's
but
like 0 point something percent.
I don't know, maybe 10% or something. I don't know.
I'd say it's probably
you know,
less.
something like that. But so that I think people need to know that, right? That isn't really it.
Absolutely.
It's not like should I work with an agency and be employed and have my holidays paid for, or if you're in an agency, in most cases, you're still going to be self-employed.
But I think
So-
also it's important for clients to know, and this is really something I think a lot of people are not aware of this, that the agent they're working with, who is maybe even driving a company car with a branding on it and business card of a big company and so on, that agent actually isn't getting paid anything for their time. They're only getting paid on results. They're only getting paid commissions. And I think a lot of people are not aware of that. And so both in good ways and bad ways. I mean, it
Sure.
affects how you
Are you
deal.
saying, Percy, and I think if you are saying this, I also think it's a fantastic point to make, maybe. We're not going to solve all the problems of our industry, and that's not, even I'm
It's
not
not somewhere.
as ambitious, maybe little by little. But are you saying part of the solution is to have some kind of education for the buyers, for the clients?
Yes.
Some kind of, for them to understand that, for example, all agents have access to pretty much 95% the same properties.
If you got a buyer for a Zagaleta mansion, you can be Paco the gardener all you want. You're gonna someone else will sell that to you. You know, absolutely. Everyone's got access to just about everything.
So, do you think one of the things we're talking about that we should maybe that would help the market reputation, that would help us, the agents, including newbie agents, and I think they absolutely. I think what we're saying here is that you named 15 to 20,000 people that are offering real estate. Offering to sell real estate. It's a fact of life, right? We're saying you can't go, with a gun. Nobody's going to go with a gun and shoot anyone. So it's going to continue the same as, there are people who have, cash-based business doing manicures and everything else. They're just doing it from home now because there've been inspections. So what we're saying is there are lots and lots of agents. Some of them are good, have good intentions to become great expert agents, and they bring maybe some great value to us as well, to the coast, to us as professionals, with some new ideas, with some new technology, with new cultural insights. Others, and we won't go into percentages, but obviously there are a lot, and there are a lot of experienced agents as well who are very unethical. So I think, having done something bad here in real estate for 10 years does not qualify you as the expert real estate agent with all the experience.
Expert at something. But I would say we're talking to some extent about different issues. So what we're talking about earlier was, let's say, people who shouldn't actually be doing real estate at all, but they're sort of doing on the side, or people who do it in an unethical manner, and they can be working for big companies even, and they get fired maybe at some point from a company, but then they join another company that doesn't know or doesn't care. So you can have these bad apples moving around, and we've all dealt with them at some point. Again, they're, I would say, a fairly small minority. Obviously, you need one bad apple to give the whole basket a bad reputation, right? But then we have the other issue, and I think that's more the one that people were complaining about now, of inexperienced agents, of people who are starting to work here without actually having the relevant know-how. And it's not just about taxes or about legislation, which, quite frankly, I would say the majority of agents here don't have a full understanding of it. It's also very difficult you need to really be into it. You also need to be able, this is a side note, how many agents don't speak any Spanish? Because they don't need it, because I have worked in offices where I was the only Spanish speaker, except maybe for the secretary. None of the agents spoke Spanish. Now, they were very successful, but because they were never dealing with Spanish people. But they were successful until they ran into some legal issue. And then it was like, Percy, can you have a look at this document for me? And I made it a point because I am half Spanish to start with, but also I'm curious. I love to read legal documents. I'm a frustrated lawyer in some way.
Okay.
So,
Nerd alert.
I always read contracts. I always read documents. The first thing I do is, and I was curious. So I learned these things. And at some point I thought, how can you survive if you don't know these things? Of course, you pass it all over to the lawyer. But then the lawyer does their own job, maybe not thinking about the sales side. And that's why we start complaining about the lawyers. But actually, the lawyers doing their job.
Well,
Right? One thing at a time.
That's next,
And
next
actually,
episode.
one second. My crazy ideas. Alfredo is like already like, oh my God, what's happening now? As you were talking, you inspired me.
Ooh.
I need Alfredo's
Oh.
approval on this.
Go
Let's
for
do
it.
something crazy. Okay. So, Alfredo and I and Juan, we founded just over a year and a half ago, our real estate LMG Real Estate Academy, which is 10 modules, soft skills and hard skills. And with Alfredo participating, with market experts participating, and in IAA, you have access to that. You have the academy included in IAA in your membership. But Alfredo, we have it separated as modules, and there is one module that's about the market, that's talking about the market, that how it works, the different roles, what you need to know, how you need to go about it. How do you feel if we right now say we're going to give away for free that module?
Do it. It's old anyway.
Keeping it real as promised. Shall we do that?
It should, yeah.
So to your very good point, that people, it's one of those things that you don't know how much you don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, when you come in, it's like the guy yesterday I had the meeting with, and he's like, but all the agents that I dealt with to buy my own property, they knew nothing. So there can't be much to know if, any kind of guy was offering me and opening me some properties. He's got to, I am good enough. I'm a good salesperson. I'm 54. I can do this. So because they have no idea how much, the iceberg, how much it is. And in our introduction or the market module that we're co-hosting together, we're talking about, and I think at the very least, people that are actual newbies, I think obviously cowboys won't want to to spend an hour and a half on watching it, because it's video online modules. But people who are actually serious,
Why not?
people who are their intention is good, let's reward that intention.
There's a thing that you just touched on that reminded me. There's a thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Oh, yes.
Have you heard of that? Dunning-Kruger effect? And that's something that happens in any industry, and that is where when you first start learning something, you learn just enough to make you feel like you're an expert, and then you learn a bit more and realize you know nothing, and then you go right back to the bottom of the knowledge curve, and then you gradually work your way back up to knowing a lot. And that happens in everything, and it happens in real estate. In the sense that people start, they find out a little bit. I think there's a saying that a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. They think, oh, I know how to do real estate now. I've seen one video, I've done one thing. And
I think you need to watch the other nine.
And that's when they're the most dangerous to the market, to the buyers.
You need to have a certain level of intelligence to realize you're stupid.
That's
basically that's the Dunning-Kruger effect in a nutshell.
It happens with everything. It happens with your iPhone, doesn't it? You get an iPhone, you go, oh, this is pretty good video, and then you try and step it up. You step it up, and then you go, oh boy.
Here with the
No, but I mean that does happen here, and I think that to your point that they don't know what they don't know. This is actually the truth. How would they know what they don't know, right?
We're here, I feel part of my own mission. I'm not goody-goody. I'm not a charity case, but I do feel those of us that are influential in some way, you are super influential in many aspects of the world, including, LinkedIn. You're the one, the guru. You're influential in your aspects. And for me, I think most of my life I've spent creating, connecting people, communities, sharing sometimes inspiration, sometimes knowledge, sometimes just contacts. And that's that's how LM Group Real Estate started, where next month we're celebrating 12 years. And it started as a community for Russian-speaking residents and wannabe residents all those years ago, from all different countries, from ex-USSR, from former Soviet Union. And they wanted to integrate themselves into the local community. They didn't want, the idea was never like a ghetto. This is us in our Russian-speaking community, because we did do our TV channel. We did quite a lot in Russian, but it was a bridge towards integrating. And those people who weren't interested of integrating themselves, they weren't part of that community, because we did a lot of networking, family events, where we were introducing them to the international residents, we were introducing them to the Spanish businesses, and that was great. And I feel this is a similar situation where with this we can filter, with the academy, with IAA, we can filter people who don't want to become better, who, I'm just on my own, I'll do, I don't want to pay anyone, don't want to spend any time. I just want to see how much money I can make with the least amount of effort, right? If I don't have to get off my sofa, then I won't, I won't even watch a video on the market to understand it. Like, I've got the gift of the gab. I'll tell my mate, come over. I've got some keys from some properties. So I feel our mission a little bit is a bridge for the people who want to continue their professional and business development, to empower them, to facilitate them with different tools, with knowledge, with whether it's educational, whether it's contacts, whether it's tools and materials. So, but only, of course, it's a way for people who want to keep growing. And it's okay to start low, although in IAA, I think half the people have probably more than, on average, 6-7 years of experience. Sometimes that experience is in a different country. We have from Holland, etc. But here they want, they want to go that way. And with giving away our module, we are helping them themselves understand, do I want to invest in myself and become professional? Am I ready to invest an hour and a half of my time to understand what am I getting, or what I gotten myself in for? And I think that will help all of us,
Sure.
professionals as well in the market, to shed a little bit of light on how the market works, or should work, right?
Sure. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
I think the thing to maybe step back is, first of all, we haven't really explained what the IAA is. Okay, so anybody listening to this doesn't know, they're going to be thinking, what's this thing she keeps on talking
They'll
about?
Google.
What is the IAA?
So IAA is the platform for the independent brokers, those that don't want to commit to creating their full-blown business, full-blown agency. They do want to have full freedom and flexibility to work when they want, with the clients that they choose to work with, from where they want. Some of them are traveling quite a lot and working this way. Some of them are collaborating with each other and saying, okay, I'm going to be traveling quite a lot. I have quite a few clients. Do you want to collaborate with me and work with me? Because we are creating we have created this community that is professional, even if some of them don't have quite so much experience here locally. They've got the academy included. They have the materials, they have the different tools, they have also access to MLS, they have access to our own proprietary, especially we're very focused on new build market, on new build projects. We educate, we get together for our branches. How would you, some words from you maybe help? What's the most that you get out of IAA? What are your favorite things?
Oh,
The
it's
person who created it says it's really good. What this person?
The person using it.
I have to keep it real. No, I'm kidding. No, I think it's a great initiative, because when you are, basically, I think the word we're looking for is freelancer, and it's a term some people think it's not fancy enough. So I have no problem with that. I think it's a. Let's put it this way: all the things we were talking about and not being professional, you cannot be inexperienced or unprofessional and survive as a freelancer. It's impossible. You can get lucky once or
Correct.
twice. the unprofessional agents, and by unprofessional, I don't necessarily mean cowboys. I don't mean unethical. I mean people maybe who just are not that skilled or not that interested in developing their skills. They generally work in bigger companies where the bigger company can absorb a lot of their inexperience because there are more people to pick up the pieces. They can, there's always a manager who can
And they speak
save
Polish.
them. Also,
okay.
well, all sorts of language.
Where did this come
all
from?
sorts,
Right.
all sorts of
Yes.
languages.
No, I don't mean because of the Polish people. Sorry, I'm interrupted.
There's no nationality limit on it. Obviously, you get the companies that are very focused on just one market, one language, etc. But as a freelancer, if you're no good, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not delivering service, I mean, your clients are going to go somewhere else. You're not going to close deals. You're not going to make money. You're going to go back to taxi driving, maybe whatever it is So I think generally, there aren't that many freelancers actually who are, especially if we're looking at the high end, who are successful. And I would say, I mean, I chose that path at some point because for a number of reasons. One was I at that point especially wanted more freedom over my time, and I did want to travel more. I wanted to focus on quality over quantity. I had some good contacts, and I thought I would rather work with 5 good clients in a year than get 5 crappy leads a day that don't pick up the phone, and I've got somebody breathing down my neck. Have you called this guy? Have you sent him WhatsApp? Have you emailed them? And they never reply. And you're wasting time while you could be actually closing a deal with a real client, right? That was another thing. And the third thing for me was that I didn't want because I had been in the market now for a while, I didn't want my name and my reputation tied to other people. I didn't want it to be affected by the actions of other people.
Okay.
Which can be an issue. So those are my reasons. But there are downsides to it. There is something, and I've always been a very independent spirit, but there is something nice about working in a company where you have colleagues and you have banter and you exchange a lot of information. And you walk into the office and somebody says, "Oh, have you seen that house and that thing?" And
Are you saying with IAA you're getting back that part of
little bit,
communicating
yes.
and the
And I mean, it's still
communal
obviously,
chat that we
Yeah.
have obviously,
and it's nice to have that. It's nice to have
coordinate to go together to the events because we
Yeah.
have, for example, everybody gets the professional Google Drive, and in the Google Drive you have I'm trying to get all my terminology right. Alfredo is waiting to see where I'm gonna Juan,
That should be good.
help. So we create because one of the first giveaways, and I saw again back to LinkedIn. I saw this morning a lovely girl that I've actually really enjoyed her posts in LinkedIn. She's in real estate, and I won't point fingers because there could be so many of them. And she says, "Well, if you want to know more, collaborate with me at gmail.com." And until that point, everything was okay. But then if I have to, have a professional collaboration with somebody at gmail.com, me personally, I'm out. So we have the professional email addresses at ia.realestate. We have the Google Drive, the folders with all the different materials, all the different instruments, PDFs for the agents themselves, and to send to their clients unbranded as well. Like, for example, what are all the taxes? What are all the maintenance fees that they would normally be paying, for example, for the different types of residences? Now, minus the golden visa, unfortunately, but we're covering the other types. Also, investment case templates. If a client wants you to calculate what are the actual sums that are going to be, and then you have the calendar where automatically we're adding different types of open houses and project presentations. They're automatically there. And then in the member chat, people are asking, who's going to go to open house. So you do get that community back, but on your own terms. Nobody is.
So the short version is it's
all right. Okay.
it's infrastructure and
Yes.
community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to explain one thing.
Yes.
What I said about the Polish
Yes.
just before, this will be a good test to see if anybody listens past that.
Yes.
The-
Well, we're not going to do the edit because we don't do edit here. But maybe we'll write in the
But
description.
polish it.
Yes. Go back, go to the very end, watch the very end to know what you thought was some kind of a
what I meant,
delicate thing. Yeah.
what I meant was the Polish as an example in terms of a language. So a lot of big agencies in the last 4 years have hired anybody who speaks Polish.
Mhm.
so they could service the Polish clients. That applies to any language, but
Yeah.
currently the Polish thing
Yeah.
was the big thing. I wish you could say the Americans, but everybody pretty much speaks English, so that's not a thing.
Yes.
So a lot of the agencies are hiring people based on their language skills as opposed to their
Dutch to a certain degree
professionals.
as well. Yeah, people look at where are most of the clients coming from right now, and it keeps shifting every 2 years or so.
Of course it does.
And you're looking for people who speak the language.
Yeah, and those are the conversations you hear with agents.
Yeah.
We need a Polish
Absolutely.
speaker. Get a Polish
Absolutely.
speaker. That's what I
Absolutely.
meant. Not that it's a Polish speakers are not professional.
It's good you clarify that, and it's very good you make that point because it really gets us back to a little bit. It's so easy to do agent bashing or generally say, okay, all these unprofessional people shouldn't be there, but they're there for a reason. And often maybe in the first couple of months, I mean, if you get the right person, maybe they're not that experienced, but experience doesn't necessarily mean much. You can be very experienced and still be rubbish
Absolutely,
at
yes.
your job. I have worked with people like that. I think we all have. So experience by itself doesn't mean you can have somebody who's been there for 6 months, but they're really switched on. They are fast learners, and they have a good work ethic, and they'll do better job than someone who's been there for 5 years and doesn't have those qualities. I mean, if I were hiring now, I would look at. There's a wonderful saying. A friend of mine
Ethics.
likes to use.
I think
it's-
we're on the same wavelength.
It's your
of values.
it's your
Yeah.
attitude, not your aptitude, that
100%.
determines your altitude. So I think that is more important.
Nice.
But I also think the way things are going now, you'll know more about this than me, but I think we will see a consolidation of the real estate market within the next couple of years.
I think
We
it's happening
definitely
already.
will. It's happening already, and I think that
What do you mean? Or what do you mean?
But you started.
a pretty drastic reduction, I would say, in the number of agencies and agents, because I think it is harder and harder as a small company. Let's keep out freelancing for a minute, because that's a different kettle of fish again, because there you rely a lot on referrals, a lot on personal contacts, and not so much on the, let's say, classic business model. Smaller agency inevitably will have high overheads in the future, because you no longer, I mean, I remember when Google was the new thing, right? Yes, I'm that old. And people were like, I still remember having the cheat sheet when you had to do keywords, right? You have to put all these keywords into every property description so that we rank high on Google. And maybe in the first year it worked, and then everybody did it. And then you could do all the SEO you want, and you were still page 67 on Google results. And the ones who were always on top were the ones who had the biggest traffic, the biggest content, and paid the most money, especially paid the most
You
money.
got to pay to play.
Then in the beginning,
We're just getting
Ooh,
yes.
this-
You got to pay
So
to
then-
play.
social media appeared. And in the beginning, again, they were fresh and unspoiled, and whoever was there first and spotted the trend and did it with YouTube, you mentioned Rumelia as an example, they were the best and the first at doing it at
The
that
pioneer,
time.
absolutely.
They were the pioneers. Now, there was a time when you could catch up and with fairly limited resources, create content and be there as well. Now everybody's doing it. So what chance do you have to actually stand out unless you have a huge budget to compete? So I think that's going to affect a lot of businesses.
I think
And it's not just marketing on all levels.
to show that we really are kind of a market podcast. I think let's throw in there, and I think as much courses, webinars, education, academies that there could be, the better for all of us. We're not going to sell 20,000 academy programs. We're not going to. We're definitely not taking on 20,000 IAA members.
No.
And the more there are, you've mentioned Franke and De La Fuente are doing
Yeah,
the academy, and they're very focused niche on the legal side of things, and it's good networking as well. They're doing their big one, the
Yeah,
anniversary one.
29th of April.
Yes,
Sold out.
great, because that was for more people, no?
Yeah,
50
they got a
people
bigger
or
room.
something
Yeah.
like that.
No, it
yeah.
used to be here at the pool, but they're doing it now at the Puerto Buenos Hotel.
Amazing. And I think I heard that you're talking about Dromelia. I heard Dromelia was going to do like a full-on 1-year academy. I might be wrong, but that's I
I think
think
the
I heard.
LPA, I think the LPA are
LPA
working
are
behind the
working.
scenes right now. It's
Yes,
impressive stuff.
absolutely.
Look, I joined
Absolutely.
in 2015. I joined England Volkers. And the main reason I joined England Volkers was because they were the only company at that time, to my knowledge, that had an academy. And when you joined, at least in theory, within the first couple of weeks, you're sent there. It's not in practice how it works. They test you first because they actually pay for the course. Otherwise, nobody would do it because it's expensive. So they want to test if you're actually someone they want to invest that money in, which makes sense.
I think Keller Williams and I
Yeah.
think the similar ones, I heard they're just fantastic with the amount of topics they cover
Yeah.
because they're international. They have so much
For me,
more.
that was the reason I joined that. And I actually went to headquarters in Germany to do it. And I was the only well, I'm half German myself, but I'm the only one who was not working in the German market. So I was this exotic creature from it. Everything was totally different about the way the market worked
Yeah.
there and the way the market worked here. And they were like, how do you even do real estate in such a jungle? But I think
But they had, as Germans and as a franchise, they have their own style. Franca de la Fuente have the more obviously legal angle. LPA have more official angle. They're as much as we can, all of us, as much as we can. In fact, I think I will publish on IAA. Everybody, all the organizations, all the companies that are providing some kind of good training webinars, academies, online, offline, meetups. It's all good. We all have to, it's our obligation. If we're in this market, it's our obligation to dedicate, to commit some time and energy and some money to keep growing professionally.
And the vast majority of people, especially if you are, let's say, still maybe at the beginning of your professional journey in this, will happily do that if it's offered to them. Because I think you spend, in the beginning, maybe you think, like in the old days, it was just, you're an estate agent, you're opening houses basically, and you think that's it. And actually, there's a lot of skill to that also, as we all know. And it's not as easy as just
which key,
when to talk, when not to talk, how to lead through, have an idea of how you are going to show the house, where do you start, where do you finish, what kind of conversation do you have, and when, all those
the actual sales skills as well.
the sales skills, which is sometimes, we do forget about. But then nowadays, because it's moved so far into the influencer sphere, let's say, and now, a lot of people think basically if they have a phone or a gimbal and, you see them at the open houses, and half the time you really don't know who's an estate agent, who's an influencer. Oh, they're both. And people think that that's enough. But then they realize, I think you spend 6 months doing this and you realize there is so much more to it, especially here, because we're actually not just the classic real estate business. We're relocation agents.
Absolutely.
We are relocation agents because the vast majority of our clients come here from another country, in many cases for the first time. Psychologists too, and then you need a psychologist on the side to heal you from all your trauma. But maybe that's a niche. IAA psychology, yes, please.
Coaching psychologist, yes.
But no, I think once people have it, and this is something sometimes you really just get it through experience. You deal with the clients and you realize just how many services you need to provide. You need to know where the good schools are, even if you don't have kids. You need to know which restaurants. You need to know, sometimes they want you to book the restaurant for them. You need to know a million things, a plumber, an electrician, Paco the gardener. You need those people. So you need to be a one-stop shop actually for a lot of
So
things.
what we're saying is, I think, Percy, as much I'm saying I'm very happy, all the organizations, if anybody is watching, listening to us, if you have any kind of educational materials, any kind of academy, online, offline events, please do let us know. I'm going to be so happy to publish through IAA all of those, because we are better together, stronger together. I know it's like cliche over cliche, but it's absolutely true. We have to stand together. We have to, just to finish our very first episode of very first season.
The whole season in one episode.
Yes, sorry. We'll probably cut and
no cutting.
no cut, no edit. So basically, I think our takeaway from today, and thank you so much. You've been very candid, and I knew I picked the right people to accompany me to basically set the tone, and the tone is, there is no script, there is no, say what you feel. Obviously, I'm gonna be careful about who I'm inviting on here. That people actually have their knowledge base and experience and expertise base to be speaking what they want. But basically, in terms of our first episode of what the market is looking like, is let's not beat down on it. It's going to stay. The 20,000 people who are somehow wanting to be involved in the market, it's a fact of life. Let's all together, I call upon all of us all together, help them filter themselves by offering as many tools as possible to professionalize themselves. This way, we're doing a favor to ourselves as the professionals in the markets, to the buyers, to the reputation of the market. So let's handhold them a little bit through this experience. And on this end, Alfredo and I from LMG Real Estate Academy are offering to people who will write to us. You can write to Alfredo personally, to me personally, through IAA, to the Academy. We will grant you the access for the module on the market, right?
Yeah.
You want to say something? I can
No.
see the smile. Yes, you do. Don't hold
No,
back.
do it. Yeah, and we could do a special offer of 2 for 2. So pay for 2, get 2. No?
Nice commercial, Alfredo.
Joking.
Good one.
Yeah. I think
So
that's...
contact either of us. We're happy to contribute our little grain of sand, as they say in Spanish, towards professionalizing of the market. Let's not beat down all the newbies or freelancers. They're very hardworking entrepreneurial people, very ethical, very collaborative. Of course, we welcome people who want to have their consultation to find out more about joining our IAA community as well, or indeed taking the academy. All the other organizations that are a positive contribution towards professionalizing, helping to empower, facilitate, educate, provide the tools. We're not, them and us. We're ecosystem. It's one of my favorite sayings. That we're ecosystem. So if it's a win, it's truly win-win. It's not, if I squeeze you out into the cold, I'm gonna have more sunshine. The sunshine is the same.
Can I say something on that topic?
Of course, yes.
I think we really saw the biggest transformation of this market when certain companies came here understanding that this is a collaborative economy, actually, that you do better because of the nature of the market, because so many clients come from so many countries and there are so many sources, and the smallest agent can do some of the biggest sales simply because of the connections they have in their home country. So there is no way that you as an agency can monopolize the market. It's extremely difficult.
Absolutely.
And this market started exploding partly also because some agencies understood this and started marketing to a certain extent more towards other agents and to being collaborative with agents.
You can name names. Let's give free promo.
All right.
Go on, you want to.
Solvilla was one of the, I would say, the pioneer of that. And they changed. I think we all, to a certain extent, owe them some gratitude.
Are we getting paid by anybody? Any kind of advertising here? Yes. Can you contact our agent, our PR agent, to see if we can...
I agree with
But there is a before and after there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do remember, because when I started working in companies, I still remember this very kind of competitive mindset that we need to beat the competition. And the biggest success, not just for the companies that did that, but I think for the market in general, it really invigorated the market, and it gave a lot of opportunities also to other agencies, which in turn it grew the market for everybody. So I think it's important to understand that and to remember that this market as it is, and I don't think that will change, relies on collaboration.
There is that we will finish.
We
will finish this. I promise we're finishing. We'll finish this with a saying that I saw a few weeks ago, and I think I've overused since, which is, at the top, there is no competition. There is
collaboration.
correct. You haven't been reading me recently. Have I banged too much?
I guess.
So thank you so much for your time, for watching us. Our offer is absolutely real because we are keeping it real in terms of academy, in terms of the module. Also, my offer to all the organizations to promote them absolutely for free. All their academy courses, webinars, events to help educate, empower. Very happy to do it. Please do send it to us. Send us suggestions for our second episode of season 1 and 2 and of course, thank you, Percy, from one of our beloved members at IAA. Thank you very much, Alfredo, the super expert and co-founder of our academy. And hopefully we'll be very...
Right at the end, he drops.
Keeping it real. So hopefully we'll be back very soon, schedule allowing.
Nice.